peace, and prosperity. My courtesy to our professor, Madam Janina Emeline G. Sinswat, an enthusiastic morning to you. To my co-learners, listeners, guys, good morning. On behalf of this reporting, I, Rohani G. Adam from College of Public Affairs and Governance, a Bachelor of Science in Social Work. For today's reporting, we will be discussing the Chapter 3, entitled Physiological Basis of Behavior. But before that, let me first enlighten you about the said topic, what the said topic really means, and what are the parts of this. For us to know, class, physiology is concerned on how living things or any of their parts of functions, particularly the bodily process. In addition to this, physiological basis of behavior deals with the basic structure of central nervous system. The technique used in neuroscience examines how drugs affect human brain. And so, how will drugs will affect our brain? This query is really important to answer. The effect of drugs on the brain. Mind-altering drugs may slow down or speed up the central nervous system and autonomic functions necessary for living, such as blood pressure, respiration, heart rate, and body temperature. Levels of some of the brain's chemical messengers or neurotransmitters are also impacted by drug abuse, including dopamine. This neurotransmitter regulates moods, enhances pleasure, and is involved with movement, reward and reinforcing behaviors, motivation, and attention. The second one is that what we call serotonin. This neurotransmitter is responsible for stabilizing moods and our emotions, while gamma-aminobutyric acid or GABA acts as a natural tranquilizer, mitigating the stress response and lowering anxiety levels, as well as the slowing down function of the central nervous system. In line with this, class, we have here three mechanisms of behavior. But before I'm gonna discuss the same part of mechanism, let us first answer this query. What mechanism of behavior means? What is the purpose of this one? Well, this matter will help the individual to respond and interact with the environment. An end to this is a behavior system that comprises perceptual, central, and motor mechanisms that act as a unit of some situation. And now let us proceed to discuss the three mechanisms of behavior. The first one of here is the receptors. Receptor class is a sense organs. Through receptions, we will be able to be aware on our environment. And so, if receptors would not able to work very well, maybe our sense of organs can't work as well. Receptor class is really important in our body because it converts energy from both external and internal environment into electrical impulses. They may be massed together to form a sense organ such as the eye, in our ear, and other aspects of our senses. Without receptor class in our body, we cannot be aware on our environment. The reason behind this is that our senses cannot transmit signal to our cell organ if the receptor is nothing. Secondly is the effectors. Effectors, this is how we are respond to our environment. Meaning, this is the result of perceptions. Meaning without our senses, effector could not be occur. In shorter term, we could not be able to respond on our environment without reception in our body system. So, how effectors respond? Well, in immune system speaking, effector cells are relatively short-lived activated that defend the body in an immune response. The production of effector cell is a response to first-time exposure to an antigen is called primary immune response. We all know that effectors bring response which restore optimum levels such as core body temperature and etc. Effectors include muscles and gland, and so response can include muscle contraction and hormone release. And that's how effectors works in our body. Thirdly is that what we call connectors. Connectors, guys, in this regard, this is the combining network of receptor and effector. These three mechanisms of behavior is just like communication process. It would not be able to disconnect at least one step in order to prevent unstable connection. Meaning, one of these three mechanisms should not be lost or should not be left aside, because these three mechanism of behavior cannot be functioned very well if one of them would not be functioned. And now, let us proceed to the nervous system. For us to know, nervous system is the major controlling, regulatory, and communicating system in our body. Meaning, every work or function of our body is manufactured by nervous system because it is the center of all mental ability, including thought, learning, the memory, and other systems in the body. The nervous system is composed of organs, principally the brain, spinal cord, and ganglia. We all know that brain is the center of the human nervous system. It controls our body to work. It also gets the messages from outside the body. It tells the body what to see, smell, hear, taste, and feel. The function of the nervous system class is to transmit signals between the brain and the rest of the body. Just like what I have said a while ago, in this way, the nervous system activity controls the ability to move. I am right, guys? This is very important in our body because it helps all the body parts of our body to communicate with each other. It also reacts to the brain cells both outside and inside the body. This system class uses both electrical and chemical means to send and receive messages. If nervous system will never been participated or even function a little bit, all aspect of our body would be unworked because nervous system has an ability to control our body to work. And we have here types of nervous system. The first one of here is the neurons. Neuron class is the fundamental of units of the brain and nervous system, meaning this cell is responsible for receiving sensory input from the external world, for sending motor command to our muscles, and for transforming and relaying the electrical signals at every step in between. The function of neurons is basically working unit of the brain, a specialized cell designed to transmit information to other nerves cells, muscle, or even gland cells. This cell is very important in our body and in our life. The reason behind this is that it has an ability to carrying information throughout the human body. Using electrical and chemical signals, they help coordinate all of the necessary function of our life. For neuron in the brain class, we can say that there are three types of neurons, such as the sensory, motor, and the connector neurons. And now, we will going to discuss it one by one. Firstly, the sensory neurons. Sensory neuron class is something that has to do with the senses, sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing, meaning to say, it activated by sensory input from the environment. For example, when you touch a hot surface with your fingertips, the sensory neurons will be the ones firing and sending off signals to the rest of the nervous system about the information they have received. This matter is really important. It accurately responds to stimuli. The brain relies on information communicated by sensory neurons. It can detect inputs from the environment and convert them into the signals and pass the information on to the brain and to spinal cord, where a response can be generated. Brain and spinal cord is so relevant to each other. The relation of these two is the base or lower part of the brain is connected to the spinal cord. Together, the brain and spinal cord are known as the central nervous system. Many nerves send electrical signals to and from the brain and spinal cord. And now, I will discuss the different five senses. The firstly is the sense of sight. The sense of sight or vision occurs when light is processed by the eye and interpreted by the brain. Light passes through the transparent eye surface called the cornea. The pupil or the black opening in the front of the eye is an opening to the eye interior. It can get larger or smaller to regulate the amount of light entering in our eye. And how sense of sight function? The sense organ for vision is an exquisitely evolved biological instrument for turning light into the brain's language of electrical signals, whirled onto the retina in the back of the eye. The lens changes the shape to allow us to see both near and far objects be clearly. Sight and vision are important because they allow us to connect with our surroundings, keep up shape, and help maintain the sharpness of our mind. Sight and vision are different entities. The sight is physical. It is a sensory experience in which light reflects of shape and object, and the eye then focus on this light. Secondly, is that what we called the sense of smell. The sense of smell or olfaction is the special sense through which smells or the odors are perceived. The sense of smell has many functions. Olfaction. The sense of smell detects and discriminates odors as well as social cues which influence our innate responses. The olfactory system in human beings is found to be weak as compared to other animals. However, it seems to be very precise. And the third sense of organ is that what we call the sense of taste. The sense of taste, perception, or gustation is the sensory detection of food on the tongue. Taste is the sensation that occurs in the mouth when a substance reacts chemically with taste receptor cells located on taste buds or papillae. Taste determines flavors of the foods. And the fourth sense of organs is that what we call the sense of touch. The somatosensory system is the network of neural structures in the brain and body that produce the perception of touch, as well as the temperature, the body position, and the pain. It is a subject of the sensory nervous system, which also represent visual, auditory, olfactory, and gustatory stimuli. And lastly, or the fifth sense organ is that what we call the sense of hearing. The sense of hearing is a mechanical sense. It turns a physical movement into the electrical signals that make up the language of the brain, translating this vibration into what we experience as the word of sound. And what is hearing sensory called? The hearing sensory called is what we call auditory or hearing. Sound is processed through the auditory sense. Auditory receptors class are located in the inner ear and identify loud, soft, high, low, near and far noises in the environment. And why sense of hearing is important? Hearing is essential for maintaining relationships and connection with friends and family, fully participating in team and community activities, and experiencing life events. Hearing makes it possible to engage, listen, laugh, and enjoy many of the things that help shape your quality of your life. And why do we need to hear? As one of our most important senses, the ability to hear enables us to connect to the world for many very important, even the vital reasons. Most importantly, hearing connects us to people, enabling us to communicate in a way that none of our other senses can be achieved. And the second one here is the motor neurons. Motor neuron class is a specialized type of brain cell called neurons located within the spinal cord and the brain. These neurons of the spinal cord are part of the central nervous system and connect to the muscles, glands, and organs throughout the body. The function of this is to transmit impulses from the spinal cord to skeletal and smooth muscles and to directly control all of our muscle movement. This is one of the important part of neuron because this is responsible for integrating signals from the brain to the muscle, to the glands, and to the organs that intend to carry out the required motor function. But this is not only about integrating signals. It also allows us to move, to talk, to eat, to swallow, and even to breathe. Therefore, without these cells, we would not be able to complete basic life function. And we have here some questions. How do motor neurons control our muscles? Well, in this regard, the motor neurons control muscles. It forms synaptic junction with either extrafusal muscle fiber or intrafusal muscle fibers. Stimulation of these motor neurons induce contraction or shortening of the muscle fibers. And the second is, how do motor neurons move inside in our body? So, the motor neurons release a chemical which is picked up by the muscle fiber. This tells the muscle fiber to contract, which makes the muscles move. Neurons carry messages from the brain via the spinal cord. These messages are carried to the muscles, which tell the muscle fiber to contract, which makes the muscle move. And that's how motor neurons move in our body. The third question is, how do motor neurons communicate with our muscle cells? The site where motor neurons and muscle cells communicate with each other is called the neuromuscular junction. This is where the neurons transfer signals substances that can be taken up by the muscles cells to make them contract. And the third part of the neurons is the connector neurons. On this type of neurons, the main purpose of this is to provide a neural circuit conducting flow of signals or information between a sensory and motor neurons. In other terms, sensory and motor won't be able to associate with circuit without the function of connector neurons. The second part or the type of central nervous system is what we call the nerve impulse. The nerve impulse is the relaying of a coded signal from a nerve cell to an effector, a muscle cell, a gland cell, or another nerve cell in response to a stimulus. Meaning to say, this signal is relayed along the axon of the nerve cell, bringing a message that instructs an effectors to act. By the way, class, axon is usually a long and single nerve cell process that usually conduct impulses away from the cell body. It is the means by which a nerve cell communicates with another cell. Nerve impulse is very important signals because it carried along nerve fiber. And how nerve impulse work? Nerve impulses work begin a dendrite, move toward the cell body, and then move down the axon. A nerve impulse travels along the neuron in the form of electrical and chemical signals. The axon tip ends at a synapse. A synapse is a junction between its axon tip and the next structure. Anyway, axon also called nerve fiber. portion of a nerve cell or neuron that carries nerve impulses away from the cell body. Most axons of vertebrates are enclosed in a myelin sheath, which increases the speed of impulse transmission. Some large axons may transmit impulses at a speed up to 90 meters per second. And the third part or type of nervous system is what we call synapse. In the nervous system, a synapse is a structure that permits a neuron or nerve cell to pass an electrical or chemical signals to another neuron or to the target effector cell. Meaning to say, synapse is basically concerned on regulating neurotransmission and understanding if synaptic transmission is the key to understanding the basic operation of the nervous system at a cellular level. Without transmission class, there is no direct communication between our cells. There would be only individual isolated cells. And how do synapses transmit signals? Synapses can be thought of as converting an electrical signal, the action potential, into a chemical signal in the form of neurotransmitter release. And then, upon binding of the transmitter to the postsynaptic receptor, switching the signal back again into an electrical form as charged ions flow into our out of this. And the fourth type is that the two major divisions of nervous system. The number one is central nervous system. The central nervous system is consists of the brain and the spinal cord. We all know that the brain plays as a central role in the control of most bodily function, including awareness, movement, sensation, thoughts, speech, and memory. In fact, brain is the center of the human nervous system, while spinal cord carries a signal or message back and forth between the brain and the peripheral nervous system. Speaking of peripheral nervous system, it is one of the two components that make up the nervous system. This one is important because it allows the brain and spinal cord to receive and send information to other areas of the body, which allow us to react to stimuli in our environment. And this will be the end of my part, and let us proceed to my co-reporter. Thank you very much.
Again, I want to greet you. Have a pleasant day to each and everyone, especially to you, Ma'am. First and foremost, I would like to introduce myself. I am Erica Tato, currently taking up Bachelor of Science in Social Work and a first-year college student. Earlier, my partner discussed about the nervous system. We have learned how the different parts of the nervous system, central and peripheral nervous system, coordinate and regulate all the communication and processes within our body, and how the nervous system helps to adapt the change in our environment to survive. In order for the function of the nervous system to work, the nervous system works with the endocrine system to coordinate and direct the activity of the body cells. So now, I will be going to continue the discussion about the endocrine system and their influences on human behavior. I know know that we are already familiar with it, right? Because we already discussed it in our previous respective school, especially in science subject. The endocrine system provides us lower but longer lasting coordination than the nervous system. At the end of this video discussion, we will be able to learn, to know, and to identify the well-established endocrine glands in our body. We will also understand about the hormones secreted by those endocrine glands and their target organs and tissues in the body. We will be able to understand the simplified functions of hormones. And most importantly, we will be able to know how these endocrine glands influence human behavior. Let's discuss more about the functions of endocrine system. The endocrine system, this interacts with the nervous system in order to control the activity within all cells in the body. This is one of the two systems or the companion of nervous system that is responsible for communication and integration between body tissues. It plays an important role in the maintenance of homeostasis in the body or in the internal environment of the body. Now, what is homeostasis and why do living organisms need to maintain it? Well, to answer that, let us define first what is homeostasis. Homeostasis is a state of steady, internal, physical and chemical conditions maintained by all living organisms, which means all living organisms must regulate their internal environment to process energy and ultimately to survive. And that's the importance of homeostasis. Our body needs it to survive. And the responsible for maintaining the homeostasis is the endocrine system. Now, let us discuss more about the endocrine system to have a clearly understanding on it. So, the endocrine system is made up of glands. These glands is an organs that particularly secrete a wide variety compound. And this compound acts as a messenger, traveling throughout the bloodstream and delivering messages to cells all over the body. And these compounds are called hormones. Now, what is hormones and its functions? Well, hormones is a chemical substances secreted by the glands, which help regulate bodily activities such as growth and metabolism. It is used by the endocrine glands to send messages to organs and tissues throughout the body. It is directly released into the bloodstream because endocrine glands don't have any ducts or any structured passageways to the organs that they serve, which means the endocrine glands is ductless. That is why they are directly released into the bloodstream. Once released into the bloodstream, they travel to their target organs or tissues, which has receptors that recognize and react to the hormone. They send signals to those hormones or to those tissues to tell them what they are supposed to do. In simple words, these hormones serves as a messenger of endocrine glands in our body. Let's proceed to the different types of endocrine gland and the hormone they produces. Starting from the head, we have the hypothalamus. We also have the pituitary gland, or also known as the master gland. We also have the pineal gland. At the neck area, we have the thyroid gland. And at the back of the thyroid gland, we have the parathyroid gland. In the chest area, we have the thymus. And deep in the abdomen area, we have the pancreas. And sitting on top of our kidneys, we have the adrenal gland. And for the reproductive gland or gonads, we have ovary for female gonads and we have testes for male gonads. And to have a clearly understanding, let's discuss briefly the functions and hormones secreted by each endocrine gland. We will start from the hypothalamus. It is located in the brain and it controls the endocrine system to determine when to tell the other gland, including the pituitary gland, to produce hormone. Now, what is the importance of the hypothalamus and its function and the hormones it produces? Well, the hypothalamus controls many processes in our body, including our mood, hunger and thirst, sleeping pattern, body temperature, and sexual function. In simple words, because of the hypothalamus, we feel hunger and thirst. We may have bad or good mood, and etc. There are most importance of hormones produced by the hypothalamus, stored in the pituitary gland. The first one is the corticotrophin-releasing hormone or CRH. It is involved in the body's response to both physical and emotional stress. It signals the pituitary gland to produce a hormone called adrenocorticotropic hormone or ACTH. In return, this ACTH triggers the production of cortisol and important stress hormones. And the second hormone is the thyrotrophin-releasing hormone or TRH. It stimulates the pituitary gland to produce thyroid-stimulating hormone. In return, thyroid-stimulating hormone plays an important role in the function of many body parts, such as the heart, gastrointestinal tract, and muscles. The third one is the gonadotrophin-releasing hormone or GnRH. It causes the pituitary gland to produce important reproductive hormones such as the follicle-stimulating hormones or TSH and the luteinizing hormone or LH. The fourth one is the oxytocin. This hormone controls many important behaviors and emotions such as sexual arousal, trust, recognition, and maternal behavior. It also involves some functions of reproductive systems such as childbirth and lactation. The fifth is the vasopressin, or also called the antidiuretic hormone or ADH. This hormone regulates water level in the body. When vasopressin is released, it signals the kidneys to absorb water. Next is the somatostatin. It works to stop the pituitary gland from releasing certain hormones, including growth hormones and thyroid-stimulating hormones. This hormone is an inhibiting hormone which regulate the function of other glands in the endocrine system. And the next is the pituitary gland. It is a small pea-sized gland and known as the master gland. Why is it called as master gland? Because it controls other hormone secreting glands. For example, the pituitary gland produces prolactin, which acts on the breast to induce milk production. The pituitary gland also secretes hormones that acts on adrenal gland, thyroid gland, testes, and ovaries, which in return produces other hormones through secretion of its hormones. The pituitary glands controls the metabolism, growth, sexual development, or sexual reproduction, and blood pressure. And the hormones produced by the pituitary gland are the following. The first one is the growth hormones, which stimulates growth of bone and other body tissues and plays a role in body's handling of nutrients and minerals. This means that the reason why our body grows or develop is because of the hormone that is produced by the pituitary gland. And the next one is the prolactin. This activates the milk production in women who is breastfeeding. The third one is the thyrotropin. It stimulates the thyroid gland to make thyroid hormones. The fourth one is the corticotropin, which stimulates the adrenal gland to make certain hormones. And next gland is the pineal gland. It is also called pineal body and located in the middle of the brain. It secretes melatonin, a hormone that may help regulate when we sleep at night and wake up in the morning. The next is the thyroid gland. It is located in front of our lower neck. It is shaped like a butterfly. It uses iodine from the food we eat to make two thyroid hormones, the iodothyronine and the thyroxine. The thyroid hormones affect every cell and all the organs of the body. They regulate the rate of which calories are burned. They also affect weight loss or weight gain, and they can slow down or speed up the heartbeat. And they can raise a lower body temperature. They can also influence the rate at which food moves through the digestive tract. It controls the way muscle contract, and it controls the rate at which dying cells are replaced. Next is the parathyroid gland. This is a two small pea-shaped attached to the thyroid gland that work together. It releases parathyroid hormone, which controls the levels of calcium in the blood with the help of calcitonin. And the next is the thymus gland. It is located just below the breastbone. The thymus gland produces several hormones, including the thymopoietin and the thymosin, the hormones that assist in the process where T cells differentiate into different parts. The thymosin increases the immune response as well as stimulating pituitary hormones such as the growth hormones, thymic humoral factor. The thymic humoral factor, it increases the immune response to viruses. Next is the pancreas. It plays an important role in converting the food we eat into fuel for the body cells. The pancreas has two main functions. an endocrine function that helps in digestion and an endocrine function that regulates blood sugar. And the most important hormone that the pancreas produces is the insulin. Why? Because insulin lowers glucose level in the bloodstream and promotes storage of glucose in fat, muscle, and other body tissues. The other hormone it produces is called glucagon. The role of glucagon in the body is to prevent blood glucose levels dropping too low. Next is the adrenal glands. These two triangular adrenal glands sit on top of each kidney. This gland produces adrenaline or epinephrine, which increases blood pressure and heart rate when body is under stress. And the most important role of this adrenal gland is it helps us to cope up with emergencies. For example, when there is a fire, earthquake, or any other emergency that happens. And the last gland is what we call the reproductive gland or gonads. It is a sex or puberty glands which promote the sperm and egg cells for reproduction. And for male gonads, the testes are a pair of sperm producing organs that maintain the health of the male reproductive system. The testosterone is a hormone secreted by the male gonads. It is necessary for proper physical development in boys. In adulthood, it maintains libido, muscle strength, and body density. And for female gonads, the ovaries make egg cells and secrete the female hormones estrogen and progesterone. The estrogen involves when a girl starts puberty, and during a puberty, a girl start having breast growth, start to accumulate body fat around the hips and thighs, and have growth spurt. Estrogen and progesterone are also involved in the regulation of menstrual cycle, and these hormones also plays a role in pregnancy. Okay, moving on to our next topic entitled sensory system. But before that, let me ask you first. Have you wondered why we are aware what is happening in our surroundings and environment? Of course, majority will say yes and knows about it. Now, let's discuss what is the sensory system all about. A sensory system consists of sensory neurons, neural pathways, and parts of the brain involved in sensory perception. The sensory system is very important of human physiology. The sensory system is composed of various sense organs which help us become aware of our environment. Let's discuss the 5 senses. Senses are important because they allow us to perceive the world in which we live. Our 5 senses are our sense of sight, also known as vision, sense of smell or olfaction, sense of hearing or audition, sense of taste or gustation, and touch, somatosensation. A sense is our ability to detect stimuli which are then interpreted and responded to accordingly. Humans are not the only creatures with sensory capacity. Animals have senses too. The degrees of sensory capability vary among species. Some have a weaker sense of smell than others. Some have a sharper sense of sight than others. The sensory organs are organs of the body that access those sensory capabilities and help us become conscious and respond to our surroundings. There are two types of receptors depending on the sensory organ: the general receptors and special receptors. The general receptors are present in the skin and muscles, while the special receptors are in the form of photoreceptors in the eyes, chemoreceptors in the mouth and nose, and mechanoreceptors in the ears. Let's discuss the five senses. The sense of sight, or also referred to as vision, is our ability to see. Eyes are the visual sensory organs of the human body. Other animals see through their eyes. Human eyes vary in color depending on the amount of melanin in the body. And eye colors can be brown, blue, gray, green, and even combination. Our eyes are sensitive to images of light. Seeing occurs when eyes detect and focus on the images. The photoreceptors present in the eye's retina are what translates light into images. The rods and cones are the two types of photoreceptors. Rods are more sensitive to light and motion, while cones are more sensitive to colors and details. The optic nerve is what carries the impulses to the brain. Do you know that our sense organs affect also our behavior? Blindness is the inability to see. If we are blind, we will have difficulty to move because we can't see. The next is the sense of hearing, also referred to as auditory perception or audition. It is our ability to perceive sounds. We have our auditory system by which we detect vibration and hear sounds. Our ears are auditory organs. Vibration are transmitted through medium such as air, and these vibrations are mechanically carried on from the eardrum through the tiny bones named the malleus, incus, and stapes. The mechanoreceptors in the inner ear turn vibrations into electrical nerve pulses. An impulses is then sent through the cochlea to the 8th cranial nerve, then to the brain. Humans may experience hearing loss when the ability to hear is lost partially or completely. And the next is the sense of nose. The sense of smell is also referred to as olfaction. We have our olfactory system by which we smell and perceive different odors and scents. The nose is an olfactory organ. The nose can also be organ to aid in our sense of taste. Humans breathe through two holes called nostrils. The olfactory neurons in the nose can also detect pheromones, which is a chemical substance released by humans which could affect how they relate with each other. And the next is the sense of taste. We have one tongue by which we perceive various tastes and flavors like sweet, salty, sour, and bitter. And the small bumps on the tongue are the papillae. In between the papillae are the taste buds. Taste buds, also called gustatory caliculi, are the sensory organs on the tongue's upper surface. The different parts of the tongue detect distinct flavors: front for salty and sweet, back for bitter, and sides for sour. And do you know that the fifth basic taste is called the umami? Taste is also referred to as gustation. It It is the sense we use to detect the taste of food and other substances. And the next is the sense of touch. Our skin is the largest organ as it covers our whole body. The receptors on our skin allow us to perceive texture, pain, temperature, pressure. Touch is also referred to as tactician, somatosensation, or mechanoreception. The sense of touch is activated by neural receptors found in the skin and other surfaces like the tongue, hair, and follicles. Skin receptors generate an impulse which is carried to the spinal cord, then to the brain. Pressure receptors in the skin are sensitive to changes in pressure. Each specific neurons in the skin give us the touch sense of itching. That's how our sensory system works. And that's all for today. Thank you.